afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming. On behalf of Puthcall U3A, I would like to introduce Lorna. A little bit of background about Lorna. Lorna was born in a village near Pontypool. I suppose everyone's got to be born somewhere. And is still proud of the Pontypool front row. She's been doing the rounds with her performances for about 15 years, covering the Welsh valleys, including Newport, Cardiff, and now Puthcall. She's been recommended by 3 U3As. Three.
I paid him.
In the last 5 years, Lorna has appeared in 2 plays and 5 Christmas performances at Newport's Dolmen Theatre. I should think we're in for 45 minutes of entertainment. So it's over to you, Lorna.
Thank you, Richard. It's lovely being... Oh, thank you. I'm in Puthcall. Wonderful. Thank you very much for a lovely welcome. Let's see what you think once I've finished. Yes. Well, it's lovely to be here. What a lovely day. I was in Barry on Monday. Am I allowed to say that? Oh, not performing, just eating fish and chips. No. Right, excuse my back. Here we are. Right. Well, I don't rely on Derek Brockway now for the weather forecast. He's lovely, you know, but I remember that I was in Porthcawl a little while ago, and there was a lovely lump of seaweed, and I took that home, and I hammered it onto the kitchen wall, see. And this is what it tells me about the Welsh weather forecast, so bear with me. It will be rather chilly in Caerphilly, cold in Mold, cool in Pontypool, and very hot in Splot. We got to look out for patches of thin fog in Festiniog, and warm winds from the Sahara will cause it to be sandy in Tonopandi. There will be a brief shower for the Gower and a pleasant day for Cardiff Bay. And the sun's coming back to Rhondda. That's lovely, isn't it? There's heavy rain for Pontywain, but it will be fine and fair in Gethley Gare, with drifting snow for Nanty Glow and a force 10 gale in Ebbw And in, please forgive my pronunciation, and in Llanfair Pwllgwyn Gilgochrin drop with Llantysilio go. Oh, there will be rain, sleet, sunshine, fog, typhoons, hail, frost and smog, and heaps of snow. And if you want to know if it's safe to drive, the answer is no. Have I... Have you got any feedback? Am I all right? I'm not tuned. Oh, it's okay. There we are. Well, you see, I like to say a few jokes as well. And there's a little boy. He went up to his mummy and she was washing up in the kitchen. He said, Mummy. She said, what is it, darling? Light of my life, apple of my eye. He said, well, can you answer me a question? She said, certainly I can. He said, how did people get here? She said, what do you mean, love? She said, in Puthcall? No, he said, not just Puthcall, he said, all around the world. He said, is it full of people? How did it happen? She said, well, I'm glad you asked that question. She said, it started a long time ago in the Garden of Eden. And there was a man called Adam and a lady called Eve, and they fell in love. And they fell in love so much that they started to have babies. And then the babies grew up and they went out into the world and they fell in love and then they started having babies. She said, and that's why there's all these people in the world today. But then he wasn't content with that. He had to go and ask his father. Now this is the manly stance, you see. And he went up to his dad. He said, Daddy, how are all the people in the world today? He said, oh, son, he said, that's an easy question. And it all comes down to one word, and the word is evolution, he said. We've all come from monkeys. Well, a little boy, he was crying, and he ran back to the kitchen to his mother. He said, Mommy, Daddy just said we've all come from monkeys. She said, take no notice. Your father was talking about his side of the family, she said. When I was little and in our village, not many of our dads had cars, and if us children wanted to go to the seaside, you had to do one particular thing. You had to go to Sunday school. And if you were very good, they took us to Barry Island. And if we were exceptionally good, they brought us back. So in those days, I'd like to relate it to you because it was childhood trips to Barry Island on a bus from Pontypool, filled with children and their mummies, courtesy of Sunday school. Nearly there, the competition. Who'll be first to see the sea? There's a shout as someone spots it, and a toddler grizzles for a wee. Mums all carrier bags and costumes, soothing lotions, crisps and pop, trail behind their rushing offspring when the bus comes to a stop. Oh, dance around the little kiosk for a spade and bucket bright. Then sandals cast in all directions when the sun comes into sight. Sinking barefoot into heaven, golden grains between the toes, and the smell of salty seaweed wafting up to tease the nose. Mums all ease into their deck chairs, village gossip for grabs, while there were chin rock pools huddling round to look for crabs. A seaside dip, and someone's darling wends her way with tearful pleas back up the beach with knitted costume now stretched down below her knees. Do you remember them? Anybody have one of them? Yes. If your mum was handy with the needles, you might have a bit of fair ale on there, nice. And it was in the dry, it was lovely, you could saunter about. But if you went in the sea, you come out like you were dragging half a ton of Welsh coal behind you, like, oh, the afternoon is growing older, and little hands all beg their share of copper pennies that are needed to spend an hour on the fair. Hurtle down the helter-skelter path, all shiny, smooth and slick, try to take avoiding action where a girl had just been sick. Screams galore aboard the ghost train. Brave boys pretend that they don't mind, but then yell out as something nasty reaches out from just behind. Coconuts remain unseated, more money wasted down the drain, and parents walk away complaining the blighters glued 'em in again. Oh, time for home. The sun is dropping. Wave goodbye to sea and fair. Half the beach is bound for Ponty, between small toes in sun-kissed hair. In each homestead, baths are calling. Soapy flannels soothe and dab, while on the silent bus is crouched a lonesome, homesick, kidnapped crab. Thank you very much. We got a bit then because our dad got a car. Can you still hear me? He got a car. We went posh, a little Ford Prefect it was, and our holidays became far more exotic. Porthcawl it was. Because in the early 1950s, when I was small, the family vacation was in Porthcawl. A little place called Nottage was where we used to stay, in a cosy bluebird caravan some distance from the bay. I remember frail gas mantles, which we took great care to light. One touch and they would crumble, then dark would be the night. And oh, that fragrant morning scent as each new day began, as Mam cooked eggs and bacon, a la caravan. The sea, oh, see the sea, and the dunes of golden sand, all waiting to be sculpted into fairy castle land. Then out would come the sandwiches and crisps and lemonade, and Dad might light a woodbine as he helped me ply my spade. Now people fly to foreign lands without a second thought. They want the sun and all mod cons in some hotspot resort. Yet sands of time are washed away upon each ebbing tide, and time stands still within each heart where memories reside. Fourth call, fourth call. Do you remember me, the little child who ran and laughed and played and dreamt sweet dreams within a caravan? I play there still where children dwell beyond a timeless wall. And folk I've loved and never lost in recapturing Porthcawl. Thank you. What have we got? Oh, we live in a very technological age now, don't we? I mean, we've got our television zappers and we've got our Xboxes, iPads, iPads, Blackberries, we've got everything. You know, it's amazing. You can even draw the curtains at a touch of a button. Electric cars are now with us. God help us. But Di bought a robot. And it was a big metal silver-coloured robot. And the special thing about it was a lie detector. If anybody told a lie, he knew, and he would slap them hard. And Di's little boy came running in from the garden. And he said, "Hey, son," he said, "hey, whoa, have you been a good boy?" And he said, "I've been a good boy. I've been a good boy, Daddy." He said, "Of course I have," he said. He said, "Well, what have you been doing with yourself?" He said, "I've helped out Mum all around the house with her chores, and I've finished all my homework." And the robot slapped him. And he was crying. His father said, "There you are," he said. He said, "Now tell Daddy what you really did today." He said, "Telling pork pies like that." He said, "All right, Dad." He said, "I went scrumping apples," he said, "in Farmer Jenkins' orchard. I was pinching apples." "Oh, were you scrumping, was you?" He said, "Right. Don't you know that's wicked? That's stealing from Farmer Jenkins." He said, "I never went scrumping when I was your age." And the robot slapped him. Anyway, my Van Weir's wife is listening to this in the kitchen now, and she comes through laughing. Oh, she said, "I've been listening to you two in there," she said. "Oh," she said, "you can tell that he's your son." And the robot slapped her then as well. Oh. Again, going back to childhood, we had a black and white telly. I expect you remember the black and white tellies, don't you? And children's hour was just that, 5 till 6, and that was your lot. And my favourite programmes were the puppet shows. I didn't mind Sooty, the glove puppet, but I liked the string puppets that walk like that. I walk like that when I've had a drop too much of the wine. There was Andy Pandy and Looby Loo, and there was the Wooden Tops with that little dog that walked like that. But my favourite ones of all time was Bill and Ben, the flower pot men, and their little friend, little Weed. So this is just called Potluck. One fine and carefree summer's day, Bill and Ben came out to play and have some regular flower pot fun beneath the gentle warming sun, while little Weed sat in her pot and watched their games and laughed a lot. All three were just the best of mates, which I hope this poem indicates. Then the gardener, he came out to play with his trusty weed-all spray, and with gusto did proceed to decimate poor little Weed. Please. Thank you very much, thank you. Bill and Ben were horrified. "Oh, flobber-dobber-dob," they cried. As little Weed she wept and sighed, and curling up looked like she died. Then Bill and Ben both hatched a plan and ran to fetch the watering can, which they filled with water to the top, and over to poor Weed did hop, and with a huff and mighty puff they washed off all the nasty stuff that was poisoning their drooping friend, which points towards a happy end. For as little Weed regained her health, Bill and Ben with crafty stealth found the gardener in his lair as he relaxed in his deck chair. They slithered quietly on their bellies, then flobberdobbed upon his wellies. The gardener cried, I've had enough. These flower pot guys are playing rough. With that he shot off down the lane and was never ever seen again. And Bill and Ben and Little Weed almost happily agreed that their days be filled with joy and laughter. And they lived, flobbidobbily, ever after. Oh, I loved him, I did. I loved him. Now, what have we got here? Oh, yes. There's an old grandfather. He called his young grandson to his side. He said, Son, he said, I've got a little bit of advice for you. And if you follow this advice, you won't go far wrong. He said, ever since I was a young man, I've been sprinkling a little bit of gunpowder on my porridge every morning, he said. He said, it haven't seen me wrong. He said, and I'm old man now, he said, but it's done me all right. You do the same, you'll be all right, he said. Well, that's what the boy did. As he grew up, every morning he'd sprinkle gunpowder on his porridge, and he grew to be 97. Every morning, gunpowder on his porridge, 97. And that's when he died. That's when he died. And he left behind 10 children, 20 grandchildren, 30 great-grandchildren, and a 15-foot hole in the crematorium wall. My little dog, I used to have a little dog until recently, and, you know, she's gone over the Rainbow Bridge, as they call it now. But we were walking by the river. Our river is the Avon Lewis. And walking on a sunny day, and I let her off the lead, and she was running on ahead, and I don't know whose head it was, but she was running on it anyway. And this little bit of music came to my ear. La 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 dee la la da da dee dum. La dee la dee da. Know it? La dee da da da. The Ash Grove, isn't it? I think that's right. By the time I got home, I had almost the whole poem in my head as a song. So it's called Naughty Sally. In yonder green valley lived naughty young Sally, who was rather too pally with the boys of the town. She wore a tight sweater as she rode her lambretta, and her mum thought it better that she should calm down. But soon at the double, poor Sal was in trouble, and burst was her bubble, which caused her to frown. So she stayed with her sister down in Pontymister, who said she'd assist her when her time came around. Well, she had her sweet baby, whose daddy was maybe Brillianto or Davy or naughty Jack Brown. The townsfolk were betting which lad would be fretting, and his passion regretting. Oh dear, what a clown! So which village laddie was the guilty young daddy? And nobody knew till the preacher left town. Oh, here we are. Where is he? Where is he? Where's my... Oh, here he is. Yes, yes, yes. Now, 3 young friends wanted to join the police. So they turned up at the police station, and one by one they were admitted into the sergeant's office, the recruiting sergeant. So the first one knocked on the door. Come in. So the boy went in, and the sergeant said, all right, son, he said, you want to join the police, do you? He said, yes. He said, I do. He said, why do you want to join the police? He said, I want to be like a Welsh Columbo, he said. That's where I want to catch criminals, these criminals, he said. He said, right. He said, well, I'll tell you what, this is a test for you, and it's genuine, he said. We got a man in the town. We've been trying to get our hands on him, this bad guy, for ages. He said, now I got a photo fit of him. He said, his profile, he said, like that, he said. There he is. See? I know him. He's in our village. No. He said, what can you tell me about this man that might help us catch him? And the boy looked and he said, well, that's easy, he said. You only going, you? Oh, God, he said, get out. He said, you're wasting my time. He said, just go. Next one. Come in. And the boy came in. He said, you want to join the police, do you? He said, yes. He said, I do. He said, why do you want to join the police? He said, because I want to drive fast cars and I want to burn rubbers, he said, and catch criminals, he said. He said, right, I'm going to show you what I just showed your friend now. This man by here, he said. What can you tell us about this man that'll help us catch him? And the boy said, well, simple, he said. You only go one, eh, he said. He said, look, he said, just go out and join your friend. You're not joining the police. Third one came in. Now, by now, the sergeant was losing the will to live. Suddenly said, what can you tell me about this man by you? And the boy looked and he said, I think he do wear contact lenses, he said. Contact lenses? He said, yes. He said, I'll just check in my files, he said. Good grief, he said, how did you know that? He said, well, that's easy, he said. He said he couldn't wear glasses with one ear and one eye, could he said. When I go round the town, I shop in Cumbrian Town Centre. Ever been there? It's not bad, is it? It's lots of eateries, Greg's and KFCs and things like that. But it's okay. But when I'm there, I see, like myself, the ladies are shopping and looking at material, looking dresses or buying the veg and whatever. And you see a lot of the men sitting outside on a bench like this. So I thought, I came back there, I had to write this. Relegated to the bench. Does it ring a bell, fellas? Does it? Does it? Fred would sit on the bench like a good un and occasionally give out a sigh. On some days he'd try the odd crossword or just watch the folk passing by. His wife always promised, I won't be too long, I just need a few bits and bobs. How he envied the chaps who were yet unretired, all labouring away at their jobs. No shopping with wives for those fellas, no changing room duties for them, no wife stepping out through a cubicle door with, do you think it's too long in the hem? Now listen to this, girls, this'll ring a bell, right? Do you think it's too long in the hem? Right. His responses were always exactly the same. If you like it, then have it, he'd say. Yes? Till frustrated, she pointed outside to the bench. Just sit there and try not to stray. There he'd perch like a faithful old pigeon. And there, yes, he patiently waited. Sometimes he was joined there by other poor chaps who, like him, had been bench relegated. Yet, when Fred arrived home with his missus and relaxed in his chair by TV, she'd place on his lap tray some food fit for gods, along with a nice cup of tea. At times he might eat and watch football. And then, one quite memorable day, he saw a young forward being justly sent off for engaging in dangerous play. The player stamped off in a temper because the referee had ignored his appeal. And as the lad scowling thumped down on the bench, Fred thought, son, I know just how you feel. Oh, here's one now. This is what I call a groan joke, a moan joke. Cowboy rode into town. Not Porthcawl now, this is a Wild West. And he stopped outside the bar, outside a saloon, and he tethered his horse up, and he went in. There was little double doors there, and he went like that. And he said to the barman, hey, barman, this is an American accent now, right? Savor it. Hey, barman, he said, I just rode all through town and there's not a folk around. He said, where's everybody? In fact, he said, there's only you and me in the bar. He said, where is everybody in town? And the barman said, oh, that's easy. He said, they've all gone to a hanging. He said, they gone to a hanging? Who are they hanging today? He said, a guy called Brown Paper Pete. Brown paper, Pete? Why? Why? He said, well, because he wears a brown paper Stetson, brown paper shirt, brown paper vest, brown paper pants, brown paper boots, brown paper spurs. He said, well, why are they hanging him? Now listen. And the barman said, for rustling. That's terrible, isn't it? Terrible. I got another one later on, don't worry. Yes. Well, like I say, I like to shop in Cumbran, and I came home one day and wrote this. So it's just called The Window Shopper. Do you ever go window shopping? Do you? Do you ever come home with a window or two? I saw a woman in Cumbran who had a careworn face. She was gazing in Primark's window at a blouse all trimmed with lace. Her visage was quite miserable. No smile played on her lips. Her hair was a mess like a bird's nest, and a tad too large were her hips. Poor soul, I thought as I moved away. She's hardly the height of perfection. And then to my horror, I realized. Oh, you're good. You're quick. Well done, Porthcawl. Yes, yes, indeed. What do we got? All right. Oh, Christmas. Hey, the stuff's in the shops already. Oh, my God. So I remembered I never had a posh sledge. You had to make do with what your mother could give you. Do you remember that? Now you're sledging. Oh, what can I put it? Well, anyway, I call this Might Slay You. I've never been on a sleigh ride. Well, not on a proper sleigh, because all I had when just a kid was a large tin tray. Right. So when it snowed, then out it came, and I climbed to the top of the hill and launched myself on that dear old tray. Oh, I still recall the thrill of hurtling down at breakneck speed to land in a snowy heap, only once again to begin the climb up that hill so smooth and steep. It was long ago, and I peer through time to the memory that still flickers as I trail back home with a battered tray and a pair of soaking knickers. Ah, yes. Here's the other moon joke now. A rabbit goes into a bar. Not in the Wild West now. Could be Porthcawl. Could be. Goes into a bar. Tall rabbit goes up to the bar and he looks at the menu board and the barman said, he said, give me a pint of beer, he said, and a cheese toastie. Welsh accent. He was a Welsh rabbit. Stunning. Give me a pint of beer, he said, and a cheese toastie. Well, the barman served him, and the rabbit drank the beer and he ate the cheese toastie, and then he went. And the next night he was back up to the bar. Give me another pint of beer and another cheese toastie. Same thing as the night before. Beer went, toastie went, off he went. Next night now, the barman's ready. Rabbit came in. He said, Bugs, he said, I know what you want tonight, he said. Beer and cheese toastie. He said, no. I want the beer, he said, but I'm fed up with the cheese toasties. I fancy a tuna toastie tonight, he said. And that's what he had, his beer, a tuna toastie, and then he cleared off. Months went by until one dark and stormy, it's always a dark and stormy night. One dark and stormy night, he floated into the bar, his spirit. And he was floating above the barman's head like that. It could have been like that. Oh, sorry, Tommy. And the barman said, Bugs, what happened? He said, I died from mixing my toasties, he said. Ah. I won't do that one. I don't like that one. Oh, yeah. Do you have any gardeners here? Do you have a gardening section at all? Yeah? Yeah? Like gardening? I wrote, when the dreaded COVID was at its full height and we couldn't really get out, and I went on my FaceTime and I wrote a poem, and people reacted, and that was a Tuesday, so I kept it up. Every Tuesday I would write a poem, and we became the Tuesday Tickler Club. Okay, so it was a Tuesday Tickler. So I wrote this once. It was an allotment week, like they have Praise the Queen week or whatever this and but God bless her. Allotment contentment, I call this. Old Ben had an allotment where he went each day to toil, rejoicing in the bounteous fare that was yielded by the soil. But Ben was quite a lonely man, with neither kin nor wife, and resigned was he that he must lead a solitary life. Until the day at the local shop, where he'd been a long-time patron, he saw behind the counter there a rather comely matron. She was a new assistant who'd started just that day, and Ben's old heart did somersaults when her blue eyes looked his way. As she asked him if she could help him, her smile was warm and bright, and thus began a sweet romance that filled them with delight. And he wooed her with spring onions and tasty runner beans, and the tenderest of garden peas and varied cabbage greens. And she loved his Maris pipers, and his broccoli she relished, and his lettuces were well received, now behave yourselves, and his cucumbers she cherished. And his carrots and his parsnips and his beetroots were a treat, and her eyes were wide and filled with pride as he laid all at her feet. And they married in the autumn when the trees were clothed in gold, which proves in finding happiness one never is too old. Now they both set off each morning, no matter what the weather, and down at the allotment ground they tend a plot together. You know when you ring the doctor, you ring the doctor. It's a joke in itself, isn't it? Just you ring the doctor. And you give him a symptom, perhaps it's the receptionist. They go, well, can you tell me what the matter is? Mind your own business. And they say, well, you better bring a water sample along. Oh, ladies, those little tubes. It's all right for the men. But anyway, can't aim as well as the men. So Di went along with a big pickle onion jar full. He had to walk careful. It was slopping over the side. And he put it on the doctor's desk. And it came back clear. He rang his wife, Dillis. He said, Dillis, you can tell your mother there's nothing wrong with you, me, her, your father, or the dog. Nursery rhymes. People don't write nursery rhymes anymore, do they? The ones we were brought up with. As children, bless them. Bless them, yes. They've got everything at their disposal to entertain themselves all the hours of the day, haven't they? They got their iPads, iPads, Xboxes, Blackberries, got everything. We had nursery rhymes. And there was one that used to puzzle me. I'd be sitting at my mother's knee. I was 27 at the time. And She go, the owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pig. An owl falling in love with a pussycat. What would be the outcome of that, I wondered. So I wrote this now. It's called Hey What a Diddle. Hey diddle diddle, the cat played the fiddle and aimed to be a star, but she swooned at the sight of an owl one night as he played on his guitar. Then Owl bought a boat, a pea-green boat, and he said to the puss, hop in. I've got some honey and plenty of money. Let's take her for a spin. Well, they sailed away for a year and a day, but Puss, she soon got wise, as she knitted the mittens for the 8 feathered kittens. It came as no surprise that Owl was a clot, and he cared not a jot, as she worked the whole day through. And she cursed the day that he'd passed her way, and found a twit to woo, a twit to woo, twit to woo. Ah, there's an old French woman now taking you out, old French woman. And she's Catholic, and she goes to Mass in France, of course. And she goes into the confessional, and the priest is there saying, this is French now, I've done American now, sir. My child, how can I help you? That hurts your jaw, doesn't it? She said, Father, I am now a very old woman. She said, I have seen a lot in my lifetime. He said, what is your problem, my child? She said, well, I will tell you. During your last war, when I was young, and I must say myself, I was very beautiful and comely. She said, an RAF pilot was shot down over my village, and I kept him safe in our farmhouse, she said, away from the enemy. I kept him in our attic. And over a period of time, we became lovers. And we were lovers very often. And the priest said, well, if you married at the time, if you weren't married, that was a sin. So I would say you must do a... No, she said, Father, that is not the question. And the father said, well, what is the question? She said, well, should I tell him that the war is over? U3A is wonderful. I used to belong to Cumbraen U3A until they kicked me out. No, they didn't kick me out. No, because I go around doing this. I couldn't always get to the meetings and whatever. So, but this is it's about 4 or 5 times I've been to the Newbridge U3A. And like yourselves, they're very warm and welcoming. And I said this one time, I said, I'll have to write something for you with Newbridge in it. I've already done a Porthcawl poem, so you can't have that. With Newbridge in it. And they said, oh, that would be very nice. So again, I was walking by the river with my little dog, and this tune came to me. La-dee-da-dum, la-dee-da-dum, la-dee-da-da-da-da-dum. By the time I got home, a lot of it was there. So here it is. There was a man from Newbridge town who thought he'd take up rugger. His wife said, Bryn, you're 85, don't be a silly man. The rugby captain's heart was touched. He said, welcome to our club, Bryn, and if we are in desperate need, we'll use you as a sub, Bryn. Then came the day when lightning struck and floored 3 of their players. So Bryn stood up and with a grin stripped off his thermal layers. He placed his teeth into a jar. You've got to be careful. And as fitness he was seeking, he rubbed his knees with liniment to stop them both from creaking. He trotted out to meet the foe. The crowd, they all fell quiet. There was a try there to convert, and Bryn, he thought he would try it. As his toe came up to meet the ball, the crowd looked on in wonder. And as the ball flew through the posts, the noise it was like thunder. Then Bryn, alas, fell to the ground. The shock had been quite fatal. And nurse ran on but couldn't help, 'cause she worked in antenatal. His funeral was a big affair, much grief was sadly vented, but the preacher said, "Don't be too sad, at least he died contented." And now he dwells in heavenly bliss, and he is so delighted, 'cause they've picked him out to be fly half for Paradise United. Oh, oh, here's one what I wrote the other day. So many of you go to the hairdressers quite often. Mine needs cutting now, actually. I'll have to buy a violin if it keeps on. So I wrote cutting edge. It's another day at hair and repair, and the salon staff are ready to snip and chat of this and that, and the scented air is heady, while hair is curled, twirled, straightened, dyed, centre parting or on the side. Busy kettle making drinks, hair shampooed at busy sinks, here a plait and there a bob. Oh, thanks, you've done a lovely job. And a radio plays the latest songs, while combs and clips and curling tongs are all brought into active play to send each patron on their way, feeling that they look the tops with highlights, lowlights, extensions, crops. And hairdressers with magic fingers notice how the hour hand lingers until the day is done, so close the door and sweep all cuttings from the floor. But tomorrow soon becomes today, so grab those scissors and let us spray. ah, ah. Post cold water is lovely, isn't it? What have we got now? Yes, oh yes. There was a preacher, a Bible thumper, fire and brimstone. And he had this hall, and he was preaching on the evils of alcohol. And it was quite full of it. And he's up there and he's saying, Achavi, Achavi. I have been walking around this town, he said. He said, in the summer I see you all outside the pubs knocking it down, he said. Yes. He said, and in the winter you're all snuggled up in there doing the same thing. Oh, he said, Achavi. He said, I tell you what now. He said, if I had all the beer in the world, I would take it down to that river by there and I would throw the whole lot in. And the audience said, Amen. Somebody said amen. I think it was an American amongst them anyway. And he said, if I had all the wine in the world, he said, the red, the white, the rosé, the sparkling, he said, down to the river, throw it all in. Hallelujah, they said. Hallelujah. And this, he said, the biggest achavi of all, he said, the spirits, the brandy, the whiskey, the gin, the vodka, he said, take it down to that river, in with it, and get rid of it. And then he sat down. And his young helper stood up then, and she very nervously said, and now we will have hymn number 371. Shall we gather at the river? And I'd be the first there. Right, to see. Oh, anybody speak French? Do you have French lessons at all? French? Don't be shy. Oui or non? Right. Thank gosh if you don't, because do you remember Kenneth Williams? He of the flaring nostrils and Merchant, you know. Well, he was on television this one evening and he was in a review and he was standing by a grand piano and he was singing this song, Ma Crêpe Suzette, and it was all a load of nonsense. And I thought, if he can do nonsense, I'll have a go at nonsense. So I wrote, it's from the tune Take Me to Your Heart Again, La Vie en Rose by Edith Piaf. It's rubbish. I wandered the gay streets of Paris and wondered just what I should do. I was searching around for the lover who'd broken my heart in two. I wandered along down the left bank, meandered back up the right, and these words that he said remained in my head and stayed with me all night. Dramatic effect, that is. Night. Je m'approie de l'amore, ma l'aide derrière. Un abattoir est serre, car la vous m'a désommé, la petite poire soufflée. C'est elle est Brigitte Bardot. Je m'en vous au revoir, de Corfu Shangri-La. C'est on Toulouse-Lautrec, Escargot, Wells Fargo, a Charles Aznavour, Monet, du Bonnet et du Champs-Élysées. Je me prends de l'amore, ma lettre derrière, and that's your lot. The fella at work minding his own business amongst all his machinery, and all of a sudden something went wrong and he went choof and he cut off his ear. Lying on the floor, couldn't sew it back on. It was like a lump of jelly. And his friends got this towel and they put it on his head and they rushed him to the hospital. And the surgeon happened to be there. He said, oh, he said, you were lucky. He said, I was just knocking off. He's a Welsh surgeon, Noxie. He said, let me have a look what's happened. You know? Oh, he said, that's bad. Oh, he said, that is bad. He said, and you're out of luck. We're all out of ears, he said. He said, but I tell you what, there's an abattoir next door. I'll nip around there, he said, and see what I can come back with. He brought back a pig's ear. You know how big a pig's ear is? And he got his scalpel and he pared it right down to human shape like that. And he put it there. And he sewed it on. I think it was lazy daisy stitches he used. I sewed it on. And he said, no. He said, how did that feel? And the man went, oh, it still hurts. He said, well, go home. He said, come back 2 or 3 weeks. He said, let me see how it's going on. Well, about 3 weeks later, the man was back. And the surgeon said, how are you? He said, oh, he said, it's healed. He said, it's healed. Surgeon said, any problems with it? He said, well, no, not as such, but I get a bit of crackling now and again, he said. Let's see what we got here. Yes. Oh. Now, the COVID, I hate to keep bringing back. It happened. It happened. And when we were all first called for injections, I think we were all a bit dubious, weren't we? It was something new, you know. Well, this is a sheep farmer. I love the name Di. I use it a lot in my works. If I forget the names, I got Di, like so. Now, Di is an old farmer. Yes, a sheep farmer is he, who was called to have his COVID jab, being just gone 83. But Di is a suspicious man who abhors newfangled things, plus he hates those hypodermics and the way the needle stings. So he turned to an old recipe that he used upon his flock, an ancient family medicine held safely under lock. 'Twas quite a pungent mixture, but it kept his sheep in trim, the healthiest flock for miles around, full of vigour, zest, and vim. So that farmer knew what he must do as he took it from the shelf. though it was only used on sheep before, he would try it on himself. Then grabbing his enamel mug, he filled it to the top, and with an action smooth and swift, gulped its contents down his crop. Before too long, he noticed in his mantle looking glass that his hair had grown profusely and was now a curly mass. In bed that night he itched and scratched till he could find no peace, then found next day that he had grown a nice luxuriant fleece. Next morning, panicking, he ran outside, where his fate was nearly sealed, as his sheepdog soon caught sight of him and chased him round the field. He's become the talk of farming folk, who find his plight quite gripping, and they've offered that each year for free they'll line him up for dipping. His fleece is growing beautifully. In fact, it's most endearing. A pity that it has to go when it comes the time for shearing. But Di's an optimist at heart. He's not taking things too hard. If you ask him how he is these days, he'll say he's not too bad. That's awful, isn't it? The bank robber in Cwmbran Bank was robbed. And he had him there, and he had a ski mask on. And he had his sawn-off shotgun. He had him. He had the customers and the staff lined up against a wall. And all of a sudden, his ski mask slipped up, and he pulled it down quick. And he said to this man, he said, "Did you just see my face?" And the man said, "I caught a glimpse," and he shot him. And he went up to the next man, he said, "Did you just see my face?" And he said, "No, but I think my wife did." Oh, let's see what we got by here. Oh, I'm ready. Oh my God! All right, another nursery rhyme. Little Miss Muffet. Remember Miss Muffet? Well, I've changed her now. She's not Miss Muffet anymore. I've dragged her into the 21st century. Because now she's little Miss Dinah sat on a recliner eating her camembert. Along came a spider and sat down beside her, but the child turned not a hair. When the spider cried, "Boo!" she replied, "Who are you?" I sound like Gladys Pugh then, didn't I? "Who are you?" Which dented that poor creature's pride. He said, "You seem cheerful. How come you are not fearful?" And this is what Dinah replied. "Oh, I've had so much fun since the first morning sun, pursuing my hobby with glee. I've quite a collection which, on reflection, you might like to come up and see." "Okay," said the spider, who trotted beside her. He followed her up to her study. When they entered the room, Dinah yelled with a boom, "Hey, fellas, I brought you a buddy." In jars by the score, from ceiling to floor, lay insects of all shapes and sizes. There were ants from Dundee, and a Somerset bee, and a woodlouse that came from Devizes. There were butterflies, millipedes, moths, centipedes, which were all from the slopes of Snowdonia. Some were in aspic, others in brine, and a few were just soaked in ammonia. The eyes of the spider grew wider and wider. He'd been hoodwinked, set up good and proper. Thanks to his luckless star, he now sits in a jar alongside a giant grasshopper. So to all insects small, who creep, jump, or crawl, I say this without an apology. If you must try to scare a young girl in her chair, don't pick one that likes entomology. Are we looking for time? All right, Richard? Yeah? When you've had enough, just go like that, and I'll totally ignore you. Maldwyn and his wife were expecting their first baby. But unfortunately, right as she was near her time, he was called up to London for his job in an office. So he went up to London, and his mother-in-law rang, and she said, he was in the hotel then. His mother-in-law rang, and she said, she's in hospital. She's in hospital now, my Henry. Oh, he said, all right. So he let a bit of time go by and he thought, well, I'll ring the hospital now, see how she's getting on. So when he rang, by mistake, they put him through to Lord's cricket ground. He said, is Baldwin Jenkins by here, he said. I'm just wondering how things are going. And this posh voice said, all right, he said. Well, we've had 6 out so far. We're expecting the next one out any minute. And the last one out was a duck. Because it's autumn now, isn't it? Autumn. Wouldn't think so. Summer won't give in easily. This is called childhood autumn. Did you ever go scrimping? Come on, own it. Yes, scrimping. I did once. I was frightened to death. They nearly caught me. Let's all go a scrimping beneath the apple trees in Farmer Jenkins' orchard when nettles sting our knees. When afternoon is past its prime and dusk abets our deeds, it cloaks us as we search for fruit among the grass and weeds. Oh, see our paper carrier bags are bulging with their spoils, we naughty pippin raiders who are floating in our aisles. Homeward then, the valiant ones, let pride fill up our hearts. We can almost taste the custard on these future apple tarts. I could eat a slice of that now, could you? Apple tart and custard. And blackberries. Yeah. Been blackberrying? Yeah, yes, indeed. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Here we are. What were you like in school? Were you sort of brainy children, or did you sit at the back of the class like I did and cause mischief? Well, Gethin was called up to teacher's desk. He said, Gethin, I think you've been cribbing off John sitting next to you in your maths test. He said, I haven't, sir. I wouldn't do anything like that. He said, look, I got the papers by you to prove it. He said, listen to this now, he said. Question 1. 21 divided by 3. John put 7. So did you. Question 2. 5 times 32. John put 160. So did you. Question 3. 156 plus 254. John put 410. And guess what? So did you. Question 4. What is the square root of 49? John put, I don't know. And you put, neither do I. She was the best dressed girl at the party, and she knew that she had style. She was young and pretty with long blonde hair and could capture a heart with a smile. She was confident, poised, flirtatious, and of men was the first among thinkers. But no one dared say as she strolled about that her dress had got caught. Come on, and knickers. You are good on rhyming, you are fair play. The best, the best. Let's see what else we got here now. Oh, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one done, that done, that done, that. The preacher room. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay. We're coming to the. Oh, here we are. Yeah. Mavanweir, I'll use die again. Mavanweir said to die, can I ask you something, love? He said, what is it? He said, I tell you what. He said, you've been looking ever so sad lately. What's the matter? What do you want to ask me? She said, well, you do the lottery, don't you? He said, well, yes, every Saturday, sometimes on a Wednesday. Yeah, she said, I know. He said, well, what's the matter with that? Well, I've been ever so worried. What if you won the big rolly over one? She said, millions of pounds. He said, well, what's the matter with that? She said, well, if you did, would you still love me? Oh, God, he said. Of course I would. I'd miss you, but I'd still love you, he said. Oh, here we are. This is my little dog, the one that I used to walk by the river. She was Jack Russell. Any dog owners here? Yeah? Yeah, dog owners. And I still miss her, but there we are. I love my Jack Russell. She's feisty and fun. Her legs are quite little, but boy, can she run. The postman's on Valium. He's white as a ghost as he creeps down the path to deliver the post. But he's on my dog's radar. She can sense he's around as she waits by the letterbox, crafty wee hound. But the postman is canny. His hand barely lingers as he drops off the post, then counts all his fingers. Oh, she's my bestest friend. How I love my Jack Russell as she greets every day with a bark and a bustle. She adores going walkies, this liveliest of females, and stops at each lamppost to check all her wee mails. Wee mail. She, she will beg for a ball as she so sweetly sits. Then 2 minutes later, she's ripped it to bits. Folks say she's a darling, and others a swine. But I love my Jack Russell, and I loved my Jack Russell because she was mine. I always had pockets and handbags full of pooper bags, not full, no. And if you ever been a dog owner, or you still are, you know that you're scrupulous, aren't you? You pick up, they do the inevitable, and you pick it up. Well, I was over Cwmbran shopping this one day, and somebody must have walked their dog through, and it had done a whoopsie, and they hadn't picked it up, right? And I come out the shop, I didn't see it, and I went right down. I skidded in it. Horrible. I went right down. Picked myself up, and this woman came out behind me and did exactly the same thing. I said, I just did that. So she rubbed my nose in it. And that is a Tommy Cooper joke. Love Tommy Cooper. Tommy Cooper. Let's have it. When a baby is old enough to make a sound that you can recognize without going glah, 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 you go in, mum, mum, dad, 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 cat, cat. But when a babe has mastered those first words, such as mama, dada, cat, the next stage that he comes to is usually, what's that? What's that? It's a hedgehog, dear. What's that? It's a snail on the path. What's that, dear? It's rude to point when you're sharing in my bath. What's that? What's that? What's that? Till you roll a weary eye. Then suddenly, what's that is gone. And in its place is, why? Why must I eat my cabbage? Why is it time for bed? Why is that man so big and fat? Why have you gone all red? Your headaches. Will he ever stop this never-ending flow? Yet round the corner lurking are those dreaded words, I know. No need to teach me how to spell or tie a tidy bow. No need to teach me arithmetic, 'cause I already know. I know that I know everything, so your good advice please stow. Your head is aching yet again. I know, we know. Who is this fount of wisdom with a non-stop flowing chat? Oh, for the days when all he said was, Mama, Dada, cat. My friend Maldwin, we were having a talk on about families, and he said, our Nan, he said, she was half Welsh, half French, and half Spanish. I said, Mal, "Ma, love, that's 3 halves." He said, "Well, she was a big woman," he said. Oh, when I was little, over the canal was this stone bridge, and sitting on the bridge would be the teddy boys, with their hairs without shirt, and the drapes and the blue suede shoes, the crepe bottoms. You were too young to remember. You was, yeah. But there they were, and they'd be sitting down. And of course, they looked quite smart to me. I was only little. I think, when I grow up, I'm going to be a teddy girl and go out with one of those. By the time I grew up, it was too late. They'd finished, the fashion was gone. But Grandad was a teddy boy in 1955. He dressed in drapes and blue suede shoes and did a killer jive. He bopped a reep-bop, bop shoo up, shoo addio, and his crepe Suzetted on the parley floor to Won't You Rock Me Daddy-O. Now years have passed, his hair is white, and life is problematic. He has to glue his dentures in. His bones are all rheumatic. The younger generation have ideas of their own, and Grandad says that they're okay. You never hear him moan. He doesn't tut and shake his head at how things are today. He simply says the beat goes on. They just dance a different way. Thank you. Little boy went up to his mummy. He said, "Mum," he said, he'd just come home from school. He said, "I got a part in a school play." "Oh," she said, "another Richard Burton for Wales." She said, "Oh, lovely. Oh, I'm proud I am of you. Oh, you got a part." He said, "Yeah, I got a part in the play." He said, "They chose me this morning." She said, "What part have you got?" He said, "I'm to play a Welsh husband." She went, "You get back to that bloody school right now," she said, "and tell them you want a speaking part." Sorry, I swore then. I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. People today, they're obsessed with trying to stay young. Whatever you pump into your face, Botox, polyfiller, whatever, and you see them, on the television, and there's the BAFTAs or the Oscars, and there's the red carpet, and they're coming up the red carpet, and the photographers and the people are cheering, the photographers saying, "Look this way, Chardonnay, look this way," and they can't smile because it's all been done, hasn't it? So I wrote Changing Faces. Mary Jane McCafferty was filled with great dismay as she gazed into her looking glass one sad and fateful day. For the reflection gazing back at her brought tears to her eyes, as she knew within her heart of hearts that the mirror never lies. Her countenance held wrinkles deep, her cheeks, oh hang on, I've lost her cheeks had lost their bloom, and bags beneath her tired eyes did naught to lift the gloom. Sneaky time had pinched her youth, she didn't see it pass, and now like sand her face had dropped to the bottom of the glass. Then suddenly she had a thought she'd give herself a treat and go and have a plastic lift at a place in Harley Street. Her friends all urged her to desist and resist a plan so drastic, but Mary Jane determined was to tread the route of plastic. 3 months later she revealed a face of years much younger, yet somewhere deep within her soul she'd gained a kind of hunger. A boob job followed rapidly, which made her chest feel numb, and then a fortnight later an enhancement of her bum. Now she walks into a crowded room with a brow that cannot frown, and needs 2 comfy cushioned chairs in order to sit down. Her chest is quite a work of art. Then as the evening passes, folk use it as a place to rest their wine and beer glass. Oh, Mary Jane, you weren't so plain. Why did you then prefer to change the gifts that nature gave? We loved you as you were. Little girl's in the garden, in the back garden. And her father comes home from work. And she's brushing the dog's teeth. He said, Megan, love, he said, what you doing? He said, by there. She said, well, what do it look like, Daddy? I am brushing Bruno's teeth. But don't worry. I'll put you a toothbrush back like I always do. And then another time, she was in the garden again, and the neighbour looked over the fence, and he said, Megan, he said, what are you doing? She said, I'm digging a hole. She said, he was digging this hole with her father's spade. He said, look, you're only little. He said, you don't cut your tutties off with that spade. What are you doing? She said, I'm digging a hole. Why are you digging a hole? She said, to bury my goldfish. He said, that's a big hole for a goldfish. Isn't you a cat? It's not real. It's not real. Oh, here we are. It's a little song. Danny Kaye. I loved him in his films, but I always thought he had a lovely, sweet singing voice. And if you remember a film called The Five Pennies at all, and he sang in that, it was lovely. I can't sing. I'm nowhere close to him in singing, but I'll have a go. But I wrote a poem about the humble penny. How many people, while walking around, step over a penny that lies on the ground? Why pick it up when its value's so small? It's not worth the bother, indeed, not at all. Yet there once was a time in years gone by when a penny meant much. Its importance was high. To a child in a sweet shop, it allowed them to pick, say, 2 halfpenny chews or a licorice stick. And bangers for bonfire night, oh, what a treat, to be setting them off and disturb half the street. And at public urinals, we all spent a penny, a phrase that's still used by oh so many. But that poor little coin we now deride, as it's lost its way and it's lost its pride. It's now nothing special, its day is through. Yet there's something which tells me that's not quite true, because, be with me, Danny. This little penny is to wish on, to make all your wishes come true. And this little penny is to dream on, to dream of all you can do. And this little penny, it's a dancing penny. See how it glitters and glows, bright as a whistle, light as a thistle, quick, quick as a wink, upon its twinkling toes. And this little penny is to laugh on, to make sure that tears never fall. And this little penny, it's the last little penny, and the most important of all. For this penny is to love on, and where love is, heaven is there. So with just 5 pennies, if it's these 5 pennies, you'll be a millionaire. Coming to the end of my sentence, just a couple more, Richard, 2 more, what I usually end up with. So safely away they go. And well, we're coming to the end now of all of my nonsense. Thank you for bearing with me and not running out. And there's two things I generally end up with at the end of a set. And the one is from Dylan Thomas's Under Milk Wood, where he wrote the Reverend Eli Jenkins Evening Prayer. So that's the first one. Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Oh, please to keep thy lovely eye on all poor creatures born to die. And in the evening at sundown, I ask a blessing on the town, For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure is always touch and go. We are not always bad or good who live our lives under milkwood. And now I know would be the first to see our best side, not our worst. Oh, let us see another day. Bless us this night, I pray. And to the sun we all will bow and say goodbye, but just for now. Dylan Thomas. Well done, Dylan. I love that. I love that. And then there's the word, I cherish this word, and I'm sure you do it too. I know you do too. Because if you're English, you might say, oh, my darling, you look so sad. Do come here and have a cuddle. And you say, no, I'm Welsh. I'd rather have a cwtch. Because in Wales and all around the globe where Welsh folk may be dwelling, there is a word that calms the heart and sets it full to swelling. It comforts those who hear it said, from the rugby player Butch to the babe in arms or friend in need. The word is simply cwtch. Come to my arms, my cariad dear, and accept this sweet caress. It's all I have to give with love. Cwtch in, cwtch down. God bless. Cwtch now. Calm your fears and cling on tight to me. My arms will hold you safely up above life's raging sea. In war and strife, in loving need, when life is just a mess, Welsh arms are waiting, and the words, cwtch in, cwtch down. Shh. God bless. Thank you very much.